Looking to grow your business? Tap into millions of monthly active users with DoorDash ads. Whether you're a local favorite or a national brand, our ad solutions help you reach new customers where they are, browsing and buying on the DoorDash app. To learn more, visit about.doordash.com and click Advertise. DoorDash ads. Reach, relevance, returns.
As summertime approaches, trend watchers in the adult beverage world are anticipating another big season for vodka teas and lemonades, as young consumers skip beer and wine for the easy-to-drink sweet taste that they grew up with. That should mean another big year for Stateside brands, whose canned Surfside vodka tea and lemonade originated the trend and in 3 years have propelled it to a nationwide footprint. This week on the Marketer's Brief podcast, we'll hear from Matt Quigley, who co-founded Surfside in 2022 as an offshoot of his craft vodka brand known as Stateside. Surfside's marketing plans include sports partnerships. The brand is also getting a boost from its young audience, which has communicated its fondness on social media, becoming an advantage for Surfside as it faces off against larger rivals Boston Beer and Anheuser-Busch InBev, which have come after Surfside with copycat brands. Resourcefulness and good fortune have also played a role in Surfside's success. Quigley shares how the innovation of adding tea to vodka was inspired in part by reading the tale of the trash on Philadelphia's streets, and how Surfside's logo appeared to him at the bottom of a coffee cup. I'm John Springer, senior reporter at Ad Age, and this is the Marketer's Brief podcast. Matt Quigley, welcome to the Marketer's Brief podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. Let's get a brief introduction to yourself before we get too much into it here. How long have you been around with the Stateside brand, and when did it go into Surfside?
Stateside's been on the market. Company's been in existence for a little over 10 years at this point. So we traditionally started with vodka in glass, and that was the starting product of our organization. Surfside is just around 3 years young at this point, and so that's been our newest product line out of the company.
What was the sort of the inspiration to go from you were what would be considered a craft vodka brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And start putting it in cans and making it fruity and fun. What was the sort of inspiration for that transition for you?
We had gotten into RTDs prior to Surfside hitting the market. And I mean, for years and years and years, our customers and people that had become fans of our brand had been asking us, hey, when are you going to release a soda? When are you going to release a Stateside kind of soda and whatnot? And we had resisted for a long time just as a matter of staying really focused and building the base infrastructure of the organization, which is it's very easy to get distracted, I guess, in business, but putting those essential building blocks on the bottom, that we could rely on so we could run a successful business model was important to us in the beginning stages. And so we ultimately, with the popularity of White Claw and High Noon and whatnot, ultimately got into the RTD space in vodka soda initially. And it's called Stateside Vodka Soda. It's a pretty successful regional brand on the East Coast. This year we'll probably crest just around 1 million cases for that brand line. But for Surfside, we were looking to do something that was truly unique to us and new to market. And this is coming off of when there were thousands and thousands of hard soda brands and hard vodka seltzer brands out there. I mean, it got so ridiculous to the point where if you saw the SNL skit where they're making fun of I think it was Sears for releasing belt flavored vodka soda or hard soda. So with that in mind, and that parody was really just a reality of what was going on in the alcohol space. And so we wanted to do something that we could say, hey, this is unique to us. We were the first to market in this kind of category. And so that was the driving force of us looking at doing stuff outside of the hard soda classification.
Yeah. And your solution was tea.
Yeah.
Whose idea was that? And how did you sort of come on to that being the thing that you'd be known for?
Yeah, it was mine initially. And if there's a couple factors, but just, anecdotal to begin, you go to any of our convenience stores and from Boston all the way down to Baltimore and whatnot, and just take a look at how many doors are taken up by iced tea. And in the Northeast corridor, it's just a ridiculous amount of doors and convenience stores. And so It's just a quick indicator that we're a bunch of disgusting iced tea drinkers in the Northeast here. And then you start to look around at what people are drinking in your city and what trash gets left on the ground. I say it to a lot of my employees. I say, you really want to take note of like what is being consumed at any type of event or in any region. Like just look at the stuff that just gets just, littered. And that also means a lot a lot of smashed iced tea cans and cartons and stuff like that in the streets of Philadelphia. And so with those two factors, I started looking at the data and starting to mount my business case to my investors and partner that I thought it was a good arena to possibly get into.
Yeah, I'm picturing the Delaware Valley Wawa door is full of iced tea. You're right about
There
that.
you go.
Yeah, and the trash after festivals is a really great detail to pick up on. You were more or less, I don't want to say you were the first, or were you the first to kind of make that combination of vodka and tea?
To my knowledge, in this specific category of, the low calorie, no carbonation type beverage, I believe we were the first. There's been a lot of entrants since then on the heels of the success of the Surfside brand. But we've been doing it for 3 years, and it started with one product and it's branched into 12 now, and it's been the driving force and growth, engine for our organization.
And we can't like kind of talk about its success without kind of talking about the sort of branding magic that you had behind it. And I wonder if you can kind of talk about its positioning and the beachy feel and sort of that you've been able to bring with that product.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm our first graphic designer, so I'm employee one and two, right? Myself and my brother started the company, and he did all sales, and I, made all the alcohol and designed the product, and manufactured it and all that kind of stuff. So it's in my DNA for package design and graphic design and whatnot. And I had been sort of loosely designing it in my head for a couple months. You see something kind of cool that captivates your attention, you take a picture of it, you remember it, and all those little things ultimately that's my process. They ultimately go into building what the total brand will look like. And I mean, I kid you not, the lemon sun that's on my shirt here, that is now our the main distinguishing kind of logo mark for the Surfside brand, was staring at me at the bottom of just a run of the mill coffee cup on a surf trip. And I finished my coffee and I looked at the bottom and I saw that and I said, okay, I think that's actually going to be the top logo. And now it didn't have, it wasn't a hybrid of a sun mixed with a lemon at that point. It was just a sun. But all those little components kind of went into the building blocks of creating the brand. And just being a kid from spending all my summers at the Jersey Shore and growing up and being an avid surfer, it was always a dream to have a product that played in that kind of beach culture vibe space. And so when we started branding around it was like a natural kind of path for me to go to anchor it in that coastal community, if you will.
Yeah, and is that where the product was kind of took off? Was it on the shore or was it in Philly and they kind of brought it to the shore?
I would say the two, cultural epicenters of Surfside are the Jersey Shore and Pattison Avenue in Philadelphia. So they both simultaneously, I think, played a part in how fast the brand grew. But we released it in PA, but also released it simultaneously in Jersey and Delaware for that matter. And so before we even had the product on the market, we called our distributors and I showed them specs of design that I had created and got them some lab samples and said, hey, would you guys get behind this if we put this product out? And they all said, yeah, like we would love to take a product like this and we'll do our best to get it out there. Did we know it was going to sell out in a couple weeks period of time? We had no idea. So, we put it out, it sold out, and we were playing catch up for pretty much a couple years, just trying to keep up with the demand of it before. We'll see this summer. Hopefully we're ahead of it, but we've said that before, actually.
Yeah. So, and what's the significance of Pattison Avenue? I know it's the intersection with Broad is where the sports stadiums are, but I wasn't sure what you were talking about there.
Yeah, that's where, I mean, that's where Surfside absolutely took flight, was in the Philly stadium. And so we've had a nice long running relationship with them. The partnership people there are fantastic. If you're a fan, and you'll see Scott Nickel walking around, he's our partnership guy. He's always there. And he took our vodka in when we were just small hometown organization as a way to test it and just as a way to give back kind of to and bring cool Philadelphia products into the stadium. Well, that relationship progressed to small investments and larger investments, and our vodka soda starting to be in the stadium. And then we put Surfside in there, and that's before we had any big outfield wall advertisement and whatnot. And it organically grew to the top selling SKU in the entire ballpark the first summer it went in. And so, between that and the live, the Cordish property, live property across the street, now the Wells Fargo Center, which is now soon going to be the Xfinity Mobile Center. I mean, those are, just strongholds for our brand, and even just the parking lots as people tailgate. So we look at that as a ground zero as well for the Surfside brand.
Yeah. So we'll talk about a little bit more about your MLB partnerships because I know it's in more than one stadium now. We'll do that right after this. Don't go away.
Looking to grow your business? Tap into millions of monthly active users with DoorDash ads. Whether you're a local favorite or a national brand, our ad solutions help you reach new customers where they are, browsing and buying on the DoorDash app. To learn more, visit about.doordash.com and click Advertise. DoorDash ads. Reach, relevance, returns.
So we're back with Matt Quigley. And Matt, we were just talking about your activation in the Philly Stadium for Surfside, and you expanded that to other MLB teams this year. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about sort of how you did that and why you're going with baseball.
Yeah, I mean, baseball is a cool scenario because it's almost like the perfect intersection of a point of trial and a perfect moment. And so I think when you get those opportunities, it's a really great place to debut and push a product. And Surfside acts a lot like a traditional light beer in the regards that it's consumed in your old traditional thinking light beer drinking occasions. And frankly, we've just seen more and more consumers transitioning to stuff that is easier drinking than a light beer without the carbonation and the kind of bloat that you get from drinking so many beers in a row. And so, but baseball has traditionally been an awesome occasion for sitting down in the summer sun and having a beer. So with your friends or your dad or whatever, whomever. And so using just that kind of thinking, you can kind of see how it would make sense in that setting. And we proved it in Philadelphia and really worked the model on what we found to be successful components of sports partnerships, and then basically have taken that model and implemented it in different towns as a means of trying to recreate and recultivate the cultural identity that was built with Surfside and the Phillies in Philadelphia. And so it's been a focus of our organization, and it's also a lot of fun. We have a whole heck of a lot of fun meeting teams and traveling around and meeting partnership people, and then ultimately going to ball games and seeing lots of fans happily consuming our product is such a rewarding experience on the flip side.
Yeah, I know you're with the Yankees up here in New York. How many teams are you with today in addition to those?
On the MLB side, we're with 12.
Mhm.
We have a pretty good range of teams, and we can get you the final list or the most active list if that would be helpful for you. But we've engaged more deeply into NHL alignment. So I think right now we have 9 NHL teams, and then there's a sprinkling of some NBA and some MLS in different markets where certain partnerships, there might not be a major league baseball team that makes sense. So that's been our primary focus, though, has been Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and light beer occasions, as you mentioned, it's got to be a big source for your sort of audience, right? Might otherwise be drinking light beers, right?
Yeah, well, I think back to, I'm 41, so I think back to when I was in college and I was what the first drink that was, handed to me when I got to the college campus and, whatnot. And it was probably like a Milwaukee's Best or a Natty Light or something like that. And so I think that this also fills that type of occasion as well. And I think that's why we've seen our demo skew to the younger side, just because it's a very easy drink to consume when you might not have a taste for beer or whatnot. And so there's so many occasions out there, be it a music festival or concert whatever. And it doesn't have to be, people say, oh, well, if you're Surfside boat, I live in, Ohio, is that it does the product play there? And we kind of say, look, it's doesn't have to be consumed on the coast. It's really more of a state of mind of finding a place of relaxation or a place of just unwinding, and that can be found kind of anywhere that is enjoyable to the individual.
Yeah, the people in the alcohol industry will talk about how valuable it is to get the younger consumer that's just coming into the category for the first time. What do you see as its benefits?
Well, you've got a lot of runway, right? And the young consumer is hyper social and out there sharing information at rapid speed. And so that all those bode really, really well for transmitting messaging and just having your brand shared with a lot of individuals. And I think the cool thing that's different about being in a canned package product business versus the vodka in glass side of our company is that the can is like this billboard, and it's like a badge of social credibility. And so people are taking pictures of it and nonstop, and stuff's getting posted online and all that stuff. The other eyeballs are seeing it, other eyeballs are seeing it that might not be acutely following our company specifically. And then that just translates to other people finding out about it and trialing it. So that aspect of the hyper social engagement of the newly minted drinker is massive for our success, and we lean into that. I mean, we have a really nice social team here, and we don't take it too seriously. Like, yes, it's a high priced polished product, but you look at some of the content that we create, and half of it's whimsical and funny, and then you might have a very put together polished model based studio type look of coming out from our company, but we kind of like to play in all different areas so the consumer knows that it's supposed to be fun. At the end of the day, it's not supposed to be pretentious and untouchable.
Yeah, so a signal of the success of Surfside's got to be shown in Boston Beer and Anheuser-Busch coming after you with similar products now. I wonder if you can kind of talk about how the brand is holding up against that, and especially in some places of the world where it's you're not quite as established, where outside of the Northeast.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, look, at any point, if you're successful in anything, there's going to be competition that comes in, and we kind of already knew that was going to transpire when we politely declined their acquisition offers, and so we were prepared for that. And also, I don't always look at it as a bad situation because at the end of the day, it's raising attention to a specific category, and as more people tune into that category emerging and becoming stronger and stronger, they naturally are, cross-pollinating and bringing people to ultimately try our product. If it's not second, try our product first. So it hasn't really impacted us. I mean, I look at places like New York City where, okay, Boston Beer had an army of individuals running around, and we simply didn't and don't to the size and strength that they've had for years and years and years. And their points of distribution outweigh us, but our depletions outweigh them by 12x in Manhattan. So I just look at that as the absolute strength of the Surfside brand, that it's just dominating in such a far capacity. So as you get further and further west, we have really nice areas of growth, and as we've filled into the national accounts, be it the Walmarts and the Targets and some of the huge grocers like Meyer and Kroger and Albertsons and whatnot, it is fully taking effect in regions that were lagging as far as a depletion standpoint, but we were simply just waiting for their national reset cycle to kind of hit. But we're also, we're implementing the playbook that has worked for us. And if it's a relationship with the Dodgers, for example, we're doing exactly the same stuff that we do in Philadelphia, and we wouldn't make an investment into a team and rally around it unless we're going to put dozens of people from, employees of Surfside in that area to support the ball club and the messaging coming out of it, and the local market that's going to respond to it and whatnot. And so all signs right now in some of the big battleground states that people know as far as alcohol are looking very, very good.
Good to hear. And so quickly here, what are we going to drink this summer?
Well, hopefully it's not any drinks from my competitors. Hopefully you're Surfside, and then Stateside when you want a nice martini at a steakhouse. But they're the from our portfolio, I think you're going to see a lot of lemonade stacks this summer. The lemonade variety pack is, if not at parity right now to the iced tea pack, it is on fire. And I think it's one of those things where if the consumer just doesn't like iced tea, or maybe has a little bit of caffeine sensitivity due to the caffeine contained in tea naturally, it's a good alternative for that. And so we're seeing that specific package just perform, every time we refresh the screen, we're kind of like astounded. So I think you're going to see a lot of that across liquor stores in America.
Okay, great. And last one, I guess. You've launched a successful brand. We have other sort of marketers listening in. What could they learn from Surfside success?
Yeah, I think it's just, everyone's so hyper fixated on performance marketing now. And I think sometimes if you take a very elementary approach to the initial why of what you're doing, then it can be more impactful than just staring at spreadsheets and looking through data. Yes, that has to like support your argument at the end of the day, but you take something and you put it out to a focus group and you get 400 responses, and a lot of them could just conflict each other, and you're left with this benign answer that's just super vanilla, and it doesn't offend people, but it doesn't also inspire people. And I think that is a big problem for huge organizations where they just sample it until it's just so vanilla. And so we kind of go with our gut, and then we sample people and we say, hey, do you think this is also cool? And we get those responses and we tinker a little bit, and we put out what we would want to see and what we would want to drink. And I think if marketers and other business owners hold true to that as well, then you got a good shot of releasing successful consumer packaged goods.
And with that, Matt, we are out of time. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That was Matt Quigley, president of Stateside Brands. And I'm John Springer, senior reporter at Ad Age. I'd like to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and remind you that you can subscribe to The Marketer's Brief wherever you get your podcasts. That's all for this week. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.